Well, hello, darling, and welcome to the Just Jax podcast. Hi, I'm Jax, and I help you find the can in your cat. When we challenge our cats, miracles happen, because when I challenged mine of I can't draw, I can't paint, and I can't color, imagine my surprise when I discovered what I can do is create a 21-foot garden mural that was recently featured not once but twice on the front page of our local newspaper. Next up, I challenge the I'm no author, no artist, and no cursive writing specialist, but what I can do is self-publish 3 books for my kick-ass cursive writing curriculum, Crack the Cursive Code. I'm a jack of all trades, but what I master in is helping ordinary people like me to do extraordinary things through laughter, tears, and life-changing stories, because metaphors are my jam. Together we can find the can in your can'ts, the do's in your don'ts, and the wills in your won'ts. I'm so excited for you. Let's go. You know what I'm here to do? I'm here to help you to be happy if someone came and shit on your sandwich. And I plan to do that in this 3-part episode with having you understand the power of 3 little 3-letter words. But first, I bet you're wondering why I would say shit on your sandwich, because that actually happened to me. I was close to a mother-daughter relationship, and that relationship had struggles. I had the privilege of becoming an insider, a slight insider to their relationship. Well, one day the mom was going through a very difficult time, I guess, and the daughter told her that, well, you should talk to Jack. She always makes you feel better. She always makes you look at things a little differently. And the mom said, no, I don't want to talk to Jax right now, because she would somehow make it right or make me feel good about someone coming in here. And she's a foodie, so she picked a sandwich, and she had this delicious description of a sandwich. It's something right off of Food Network. And she was talking about someone would come in and shit on my sandwich, and she'd make me feel good about it. And you know what? I don't want to feel good about it right now. And that's exactly what's going to happen in this podcast, because I'm going to talk about stuff that's happened in my life and the tools that I've used to turn my shit into fertilizer so I could grow into something else. I am an ordinary person. In fact, the only letters I have behind my name, darling, are BITCH, because I've been, you go, bitch, and I've been, oh, you fucking bitch. I've been both of those. So what does that make me, a double master then? Anyway, so I am an ordinary person, but I have done some extraordinary things. And my goal of this podcast is for you to have a takeaway, what a powerful little moment, the first 3-letter word, and that is H-U-H. Because what that means is that you got gobsmacked, even in the smallest way, with a different way of looking at something. And that's where the rubber meets the road. You get to decide whether or not you would like to pursue a different way of thinking and change your current reality, or you could actually dismiss it and decide that you want to stay where you are. You can make the decision right there and then of which way you want to go. But my job, I find, is to provide you with the opportunity. For Einstein said it best, and I'm going to completely paraphrase it here. So, that you can never change your problem. You can never change your problems with the thinking that created them, which means that as long as you continue to think the way you think and see the way you see things, nothing will change. And that is the only thing I think that the requirement from us is actually, because I really feel that God's or whatever spiritual higher power you believe in, their hands are tied, because the ultimate issue here is free will. And this is where the free will is. If you decide to still think like shit instead of thinking like fertilizer, then that's totally on you, because you are given the opportunity at times. And during like my podcast, and even I've gotten hit by Apple commercials, for Pete's sake. You'll be presented with something where you'll get that, I never thought of that, or, I wonder if that's true, and things like that. And the reason I am on this podcast at the moment is exactly because that situation happened to me. And that's where the can in my can't came from. Now, You're gonna be quite surprised on where this came from because you know what? I still suck completely in this area, and it's taken me a long ass time to even consider redoing this again. Like, so this entire journey, my doing extraordinary things, being an ordinary person, is coming from my hatred of yoga. And I just uh yeah, yeah, yoga. And I know it's supposed to be so good for you, etc., 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 but it is just fucking awful for me. How this whole thing started is I had a CD set. That's gonna date you too, of Pio, and that was this great thing of how it's gonna combine Pilates and yoga, and you were gonna have become snatched. And I'm like, oh, that's gonna be great. I had just done my first session, and I understand, there's rough beginnings, but I felt like complete and utter dog shit. It hurt so bad. I was sitting on the edge of my bed, just bawling my eyes out. I had tears streaming down my face. I felt like a complete and utter failure. And I was beating myself up like, what the fuck, Jax? What are you doing this for? Like, you're not flexible. Like, what are you doing? And I just have to have a little side note here that if you think this story is about my mastering yoga, nope, still suck. Actually, it's I gave up trying to do yoga when touching my toes is like, hmm, that now I don't even like, for like a bag of Cheetos, would I be able to touch my toes? I don't even know for a bag of Cheetos, and the puffs. That's pretty high on my motivational food list. And now that my stomach looks like a bag of Cheetos, and I don't see my feet anymore, really. It's even worse now. So, but what happened there was that I was sitting on the edge of the bed feeling like an utter failure, complaining about how this is such a stupid thing for me to do because you're not flexible. You're just not. And all of a sudden I get these little thoughts, and these thoughts are what I'm going to share with you, and they're like this lovable little bitch in the back of my voice, just like, no, 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 no. So is it true that you're not flexible? And it was like not a challenge necessarily, but just slightly like an inquiry. And I was like, what the fuck? Of course I'm not flexible. Look at me. Right. And then I went on of course it's true. Like I say it all the time. Next question. And it was a little bit further of a push. Well, how do you know it's true? And I'm like, well, what do you mean? Like, and I've been really trying to digest what comes first necessarily, because a lot of times we think that the outside world comes first, but usually it's an issue with the inside world obviously comes first. And so it was what came first, the belief that I was not flexible or the actual proof that I was not flexible. And in regards to that proof, and but when I thought about that, what came first, it always makes me think of that what is it called? The chicken and the egg. And it always makes you wonder if the chicken. So with that, it's the chicken. If you believe it's the chicken, are you like a creationist? If it's the egg, you're an evolutionist. I'm really confused actually by that question. But anyway, so for me, where is the proof? And I had a panoramic view, like just this whole scene of my life of all these inflexible people, both physically and mentally, emotionally, spiritually. And like there's a lineup of all my relatives and the people that I've surrounded myself with. There were a couple family members that did some sports. Of course, there was hockey because we were Canadian. And there was swimming. A couple of my cousins, one family branch did swimming. But other than that, there was very little flexibility period. So I was like, well, then it was a question of, well, is it nature versus nurture? Does it mean that I was born inflexible, or was it mean that I was born into a life that was inflexible? So I just automatically assumed that because I got it from my family. And that's where this little gobsmack thing came to me, is that it was like, well, have I really tested it? Like, really did stretching? Because I remember I did this program one time and it was just this daily yoga and it was a couple stretches in the evening. And I actually started looking forward to that. And so I thought, well, this is where the can and my can't. Well, so Pio is on the not side. Like, no, no, felt horrible. That just reinforced the fact that I suck. And so it's got to go. So no Pio. But what can I do? What can I find that makes me feel good by doing it? Because that's the bottom line. I can do things by strong will, but I no longer want to force myself necessarily in that manner to do stuff. I want to have a better motivation than scarcity and fear, you know? Like, what about happiness? Like, what the fuck about that? Or just feeling good, like having a great life. Like, what a interesting motivator instead of running away from something. How about running towards something? So with that moment when I was sitting there on the bed and having that question, that's all I hope for you. That is my greatest goal is if you have something that you're stuck in that feels like shit, that's a rut that feels just doesn't feel good and you want to feel better, there's something about it that you need to look at it differently. Now, there's ways that you could look at that it's delusional and that you could be gaslighting yourself. That is true. But what I want for you to do is just to challenge yourself, because that's what I do for myself, is challenge myself and allow myself the ability and space to make a good decision. Because in the past, I have been the queen of chaos, and fuck that. I really want to claim that my change from this point forward, even though it is chaos, it can be chaos that is exciting and feels good, because the chaos in the past where I felt I had to create some horrible situation in order to change my current situation, and it was just like burning bridges almost, and I'm tired of burning bridges and I want to create the life where it feels good to explore and do one thing to another. And it happened for me, like you hear in my introduction, that the entire thing about my mural came from lying there feeling like a complete failure out of nowhere. This word comes out of my out to my mind, totally unrelated to yoga, exercise, or even my body. And out of the blue comes the word artistic. And I'm like, what the actual fuck? Why would the word artistic came in? I never saw myself as an artist. Not to me, man. Artists are masters of their medium and they create fantastic things out of nothing. My TikTok feed is just full of these people just creating fantastic pieces of work. Sure, I created a piece of art, yes, but I would never consider myself an artist, because you know why? Because people have such expectations. When you create something, like for instance, I created a cursive writing curriculum, and one of the ladies goes, "Will you come and write out my menu for my board?" Because we had a food truck when I was selling my books at an outdoor event, and sure, I dabbled with drawing when I was younger, but on a scale of 1 to 10, dude, I'm like, what, maybe a 3.5 in regard. And that's painting, drawing, um, ceramics, uh, coloring. Oh, coloring. Fuck. Coloring is the worst, man. Oh, those people that take coloring books to relax their mind and stuff, that is absolute torture for me. And it's so sad too, because my final product always seems to be boring. So when was sitting there on the bed, I left that word artistic and I was really like, really what the fuck that was all about, because I had no idea where that came from. But looking back now, 5 years ago, my whole reason of talking to you today started on that bed and with that word artistic, and thinking about whether or not I was inflexible. Still, it's interesting too, because I still consider myself inflexible, and I'm even less flexible now than I was 5 years ago because I've done shit about it. So, but sitting on that bed at that low moment, a thought changed my life. That spark, that moment is all that it took. That response of, "Am I living in myself in other ways?" has set a floodgate of extraordinary creations that I never thought possible. That moment in time, that is what this podcast is all about. Offering my insights and my stories to give you that exactly, to give you exactly that. moment. Experience the power of that 3-letter word. Now you may be thinking, who gives a flying fuck about that small change? Everything looks the same despite how I feel. Well, this is where the rubber meets the road. You have the choice, and this is where your free will comes in. You can do what I did, which just simply goes, and just leave that in the open. And just consider it, well, that would be interesting. And that would be it. Curiosity. Just be curious and make it with a question mark. Or you can just sit there and go, well, that's ridiculous, and continue back thinking where you're thinking. But one of these mottos that I've taken up from for this year, 2025, is that if you stop here, you stay here. And that's where it becomes my responsibility and our responsibility, because that's one of the things about this podcast, is that it's accountability. Because if you want to keep going and blaming around everybody else, then you're going to stay there, because the only common denominator is you. And I can say that with love, because the only common denominator is me. And I had a whiplash experience this last year about how much I am the common denominator, and I am doing exactly what I'm going to talk to you about to get out of that situation, or to act. No, out's a strong word. Just to move it in something that feels a lot better for me, and that's in the process of doing that. But sitting on that bed at that low moment, when that thought came into my mind, it changed my life. There has to be a crack in the dam, a split in the wood, a chink in the armor. There has to be a first. There has to be a start, something. And I know it can feel like sometimes one snowflake does little damage, but there has to be a first. And as soon as there's the first snowflake, it's snowing, because it changes everything. There's a first. And that's what the is. And the best place to have a that can create the greatest things, is when the moment comes. That is where you have the power. You have the absolute power to make the choice. Now, it can seem a lot easier to make the choice that you've always made. But if you can make a choice where you just be curious, where you're like, and you become the creator of your world instead of the world always happening to you, that's where the power of the moment can be. And that's how I've used these moments to be. But I've also used the moments to keep me stuck as well. I had an incident at work where there was a woman that I had difficulty being around, and I had to fake it to make it. And I realized that I used a lot of the situations that happened to make the situation worse. Did I do my own philosophy on that situation? No. All I did was look at the shit on my sandwich. So I have work to do, clearly, but it made me realize something about myself, and that can be a future episode. Well, that wraps up our episode, and I want to thank you for listening. If you want to get in contact with me, you can either DM me on Instagram, or you can send me an email on Gmail. And you know how I feel about Gmail. It's my can and my can't, so we're just going to let that go. Or you can, if you want to check out what other crazy creative stuff I'm up to, go check out my website at crackthecursivecode.com. You're going to find all my kick-ass cursive writing stuff there. There's even stuff for left-handed people. You'll also find out about my loser and my forthwith merch. Hope you have an awesome sauce day. Jax out.